Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace, blessings, and mercy of God be upon you. This is another presentation from www.central-mosque.com and the Humble Heart YouTube channel about assassins, the original terrorists. So this presentation is kind of linked with the one I did a couple of weeks ago about Iran, how and why Iran became Shia from Sunni. So these two are interlinked. It's up to you if you want to stop this. The description is in the link, and if you want to watch the how and why Iran became Shia from Sunni, or you can watch it after this YouTube presentation. It's up to you. However, I urge you to watch both to get the full picture. The Shia Sunni proxy wars, things going back and forth, it's nothing new. It's not new in the era of Donald Trump. It wasn't new in the era of Barack Obama. So this is my second presentation from history, just to shed some light to our younger audience as to what has been going on for hundreds of years. Plus, Assassins. There's a video game, I think Assassin's Creed or something like that, maybe movies as well. So a lot of people know about this Assassins and they think it's got something to do with Islam. Then what is the story? Where did these people, the assassins, come from? So let's go and talk about it for the next few minutes. So don't forget to watch this one, Iran, how and why Iran became Shia from Sunni. It's and the link is in the description. Carrying on. So the first issue is when you read a lot of Western literature, okay, they actually think that this word assassin comes from hashashins, and they think because these guys were drug addicts, hash or hashish, or it's a form of cannabis. So they believe these guys were drugged up lunatic people who went around killing people, and that's where the name assassins is actually in a corrupted form of hashashins, right? A lot of media, movies, TV shows, and stuff, they talk about it all the time. These were drugged up lunatics in Islam, and because they used hash or hashish, that's why they call hashashins. That is not true. The original name of this order was Asasiyun. Asas in Arabic means foundation or fundamentals of something. So basically, these guys called themselves the fundamentalists. Asasiyun. Does it ring a bell? So in this day and age, you hear the word about fundamentalists, extremism, etc. These guys were the original fundamentalists, sect of Islam. What happened? How did they come about? So, um, as I keep referring to, watch the other video, a lot of it will make sense. There has been a tiff between Shias, who are predominantly based in Iran, and Turks, which are, if not all, overwhelming majority Sunni. So they've been fighting for political gains, for areas and stuff like that, and it's morphed into a Sunni Shia tiff. It is Sunni Shia tiff because there are differences between Sunnis and Shias, as you well know, theological differences, differences in creed, and so on and so forth. However, it is also to do with political machinations of the time, trying to conquer land and stuff like that. So what happened is there was a period in Islam of some time when there was actually a caliphate in regions which were basically they were based they were their headquarters were in Cairo, Egypt, and they were called the Fatimid caliphates. And this caliphate is pretty unique in the sense that they were predominantly Shia. So all of the caliphates from the time of Nabi Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all the Ottomans, were predominantly Sunni. All of them were Sunni, pretty much, except this middle bit, Fatimid, which were actually Shia caliphate. So what happens is the Fatimid Caliphate, their rule is in Cairo. Cairo is their headquarters. They're ruling there, and like any other empire or dynasty, I would rather say, this dynasty begins to decline. Okay, there's a new power emerging, and guess who they are? The Seljuks. The Seljuks are emerging in areas in Anatolia and places like that, and they are basically threatening to take the land from this Fatimid Caliphate. So it is a political thing going on. However, there's an additional religious flavor to it. The Fatimids are Shias, the Seljuks are Sunni. The Fatimids are predominantly Persian, the Seljuks are Mongols and Turks, East Turkmenistani people. So then what happens is Seljuks are gaining land. Then, if you have seen the TV show Artagal's father Suleiman Shah first begins to make contact with the Seljuk Empire. Okay, so Artagal is the one who officially comes under the Seljuk Empire and takes, takes a prominent role in the Seljuks of Rome. However, Suleiman Shah, his father of Kai tribe, he actually begins to make some headway. So what happens is in 1050, something occurs. So basically, Fatimid Caliphate, right, takes a devastating blow from the emerging Seljuk Empire. This is the year where this guy, Hassan al-Sabah, is born to a 12er Shia family in Qum in Iran. Today's Iran, the province is, this city is still there. Qum, a few weeks ago when the Iranian general was assassinated by United States, there was a huge funeral that you saw on your TVs, and the biggest one was in Qum. So Qum was like a religious place. It's very significant in the histories of Shia. So this guy, Hassan al-Sabah, is born to a 12er Shia family in Qum, Iran, around 1050, pretty much around the same time where Fatimid Shia Caliphate is taking a beating at the hands of the Sunni Seljuk emerging empire. Okay, the Seljuk Empire goes from strength to strength, and the Fatimid Empire is losing ground. The Shia dynasty is losing grounds big time. One of the prominent generals, and later he becomes a wazir in the Fatimid Caliphate, his name is Abdul Malik bin Attash. So he sees the young Hassan al-Sabah, the guy who's a 12er Shia, and he sees potential in this guy. So what he says to him, he says, listen, you need to go to Isfahan in Iran and start doing da'wah towards Shiaism. Now, you might be thinking, where have you heard this term Isfahan from? It is in a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Dajjal emerges, 70,000 of the Jews will join Dajjal from this place, Isfahan. Anyway, Abdul Malik bin Attash sends the young Hassan al-Sabah to Isfahan to start making da'wah. When he starts making da'wah, once again, referring you to the older video, he established a Sufi sect. So Sufi sect where people do bay'ah to him, he becomes his sheikh, and he begins to train these people in military tactics, and he calls them fidayin. Okay, this is basically his diehard army who will die at his command. And this Sufi sect of Shias, 12er Shias, begins to grow and grow and grow until it reaches a point where Hassan al-Sabah, he has to make his headquarters somewhere. So there is in a place in Iran, this place still exists in the mountains, Alamut, and there was a castle there, and what he does is he basically takes over this castle. It was at that time ruled by Seljuks. Sorry, the Seljuks, yes. He takes over the Alamut castle, and this becomes the headquarters of this new assassins sect. And here they start training people to assassinate. Now, at that time, if you know anything about warfare, warfare used to happen with swords and some primary weapons, in the battlefield and so on. Assassins was a brand new tactic. People had not heard of them. So one of the ministers in the Seljuk dynasty, the Sunni Seljuk dynasty, was this guy Nizamul Mulk rahimahullah ta'ala. You hear about him a lot in terms when it comes to academic references in Islam, because he came from a very humble background. Came from a humble background. He was a very intelligent kid, very strategic, very decisive, and he rises in the ranks until he becomes ultimately the minister of the Seljuk Empire. He's very decisive, very intelligent, and one thing he does is he realizes that all around the Seljuk lands there are still Shia pockets. So what he tries to do is he tries to keep the Shia Sunni compromise, tries to keep the unity, but also begins to think about growing the Seljuk Empire. So he's basically, this guy is sharper than the Caliph himself. Okay, on the 10th of Ramadan 1092, when he's traveling to Baghdad, what one of the adherents of the assassin sect does, he basically disguises himself as a Sufi saint. Now Nizamul Mulk, he's very, very close to ulama, very close to Sufis, very close to people of Allah. This is the month of Ramadan. He's going. The Sufi guy stops him, stabs him. So this is how Nizamul Mulk dies. So before this murder in 1092, the assassin sect had committed a few murders, but this is the most prominent murder that puts him on the map of everybody. It doesn't end there. So now what happens is the Seljuk Empire, the Crusades are also beginning to happen at this time. The Crusades are also happening at this time. So the Seljuks are fighting on triple fronts. They're fighting Abbasid Caliphate, parts of Abbasid Caliphate. They're also fighting the Fatimid. They're also fighting the Shias, and they're also doing skirmishes with the Mongols and also with the um, Crusaders. So the Abbasid Caliphate, which is a rival, begins to regroup and gain territory. And it begins to take, so Abbasi Caliph, it also has Sunni elements in it, and they begin to take lands from the Fatimid. So this Khalifa, Caliph at that time, Al-Mustarshid Billah, in 1105, the assassins do their second high-profile assassination. They assassinate the Khalifa. Okay, the way these guys are trained in the mountains in Alamut, from what we know about history, they're trained to do reconnaissance, intelligence, and they're very, very dedicated professionals and trained. So when they're given a mission to assassinate somebody, they'll go out there and it's like pretty much, as you could hear from movies and stuff, they go spy on the person, they find out what his routine is. He leaves home, he goes to this place at this time, he comes back at this time. This is the time when the security detail is not there, so they actually trained to do this kind of stuff. So although the Al-Mustarshid Billah is not from the Seljuk Ottomans, but because it is regrouping, the Abbasid Caliphate is regrouping, the assassins kill him as well. Now, while the Seljuk is growing, the Turks are gaining power. There's also another, the Mongols are also growing. Now, these assassins are very sharp. Okay, from the beginning, they never messed with the Mongols. What they did is they signed some treaties and they said, they had allegiance with the Mongols. They never messed with them. However, after Hassan al-Sabah died and his grandson died, and some of the incompetent people took over, they made a fatal mistake. Now, the Seljuks know about it. They know that people are getting assassinated, but they've got bigger fish to fry. So Abbasids are busy, the Seljuks are busy, the Mongols are also busy because they're trying to take over Baghdad. So the reason this sect basically mushroomed is because everybody else has had their problems. They knew that there's a sect, they knew they're based in these mountains, that they know what they do, but they kind of overlooked it because they have bigger problems. However, the assassins made the fatal mistake. What they tried to do is they tried to kill this guy, Munge Khan. He was a Mongol, and they tried to kill him. Now, he's a Mongol, and his security details was very, very sharp. So details are sketchy whether they try to poison him or something. Anyway, the detail gets caught. Munge Khan never, they don't even reach close to Munge Khan. So they get arrested, they question, and they find out that this being belongs to assassins. So assassins, remember, assassins have a treaty with Mongols. At this point, Munge Khan loses it. He gets seriously angry at the assassins. How dare they come and assassinate him? So what he does, he sends his brother Halaku Khan, and he tells his brother Halaku Khan to go to the Alamat castle in the mountains, in their headquarters, and basically, just basically demolish the whole thing. Just get it over with. So Halaku Khan, assassins, they can only assassinate. They're not really a big, huge, you know, military power like the Mongols. The Mongols are battle hardened, tough. They have the resources, the weapons, and the will to go into the snow-capped mountains and actually take the assassins on, and they do. They kill hundreds of them. The Sufi sheikh of the assassins at this time, he comes to Halaku Khan and he basically says, stop. He says, look, I repledge my allegiance to the Mongols. Okay, let me go. So what Halaku Khan does is he lets him go and a few of his loyals, and he demolishes the entire infrastructure, their training place, their castle, everything, demolishes it so they can never come again. So this assassin sheikh, he travels all the way to Munge Khan to apologize for what he did and to come back again in his good books to say, look, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, etc., etc. He never even gets a chance to get to Munge Khan because Munge Khan is angry at him anyway. So when he gets to the place where Munge Khan was in the city, the security guards of Munge Khan and his military, they don't even bother. They grab the sheikh and they take him out of the jungle and they slaughter the remaining assassins. never gets to see anybody, and that is the end of it. So this was a Sufi sect of the Shias which were trained to assassinate important political leaders because they were scared. They didn't want to fight the Turks, the emerging Turks. I wouldn't say completely Turks, Mongols and Turks and everybody head on. So they did this to actually gain power and to consolidate the lands that they were losing against the Sunnis. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.